Here's something that happens to almost everyone, and almost no one notices. You're in a conversation. Someone says something, not cruel, not dramatic, just something mildly irritating. And before you've had a single conscious thought, your chest is tight, your jaw is set. The feeling is already there, fully formed, before you even decided to have it. Or you sit down to think through a problem, rational, systematic. You work it out step by step. And yet somehow you end up making the same decision you always make. Not because the logic led you there, but because something underneath the logic already knew what it wanted. Or you've eaten enough. You know you've eaten enough. And yet, Gurdjieff had a name for this. He said the human being isn't one thing, it's three. In The Fourth Way, Gurdjieff described what he called the three centers, three distinct systems operating inside every human being, each with its own intelligence, its own memory, its own way of processing the world. The intellectual center, the one most of us identify with. Thoughts, analysis, language, logic. The voice in your head, the part that plans and categorizes and explains. The emotional center. Not mood exactly, something deeper. The center that processes meaning, beauty, connection, threat. The part that knows something is wrong before you can articulate why, or that loves something before you can explain what it is. The moving center, also called the instinctive or physical center, the body's intelligence, posture, breath, reflex, habit, the part of you that catches a glass before it falls, that tenses in an unfamiliar room, that knows how to ride a bike 20 years after the last time. Three systems, all running, all the time. Here's what Gurdjieff noticed, and what you can verify in yourself without taking anyone's word for it. These three centers don't coordinate. Not naturally, not automatically. Each one operates on its own timetable, with its own priorities, often in direct conflict with the others. You can know something intellectually and feel the opposite emotionally. You've done this. Everyone has. You know the relationship isn't working. You feel, with equal certainty, that you can't leave. The intellectual center and the emotional center are looking at the same situation and arriving at completely different conclusions. And in the middle of all that, the body, the moving center, has already developed its own habits, its own posture of tension or comfort or avoidance, completely independent of either. There's a word for this state in ordinary language. We call it being torn, being conflicted, being stuck. Gurdjieff called it the ordinary condition of the human being. Not a flaw, not something wrong with you specifically. The default. He went further. Not only do the centers operate independently, they frequently do each other's work, and do it badly. When you lie awake at 2 a.m. running the same argument through your head for the fourth time, that's the intellectual center doing the emotional center's job, processing pain through logic, analyzing what should be felt. The intellect is a poor therapist. It can name the wound, but not heal it. When you make a major decision purely based on a gut feeling, without reflection, without considering consequences, that's the moving center or emotional center doing the intellectual center's job. Sometimes this works out, often it doesn't. Not because instinct is wrong, but because instinct was designed for different problems than the ones modern life presents. When you eat without hunger, scroll without curiosity, move through a day without being present to any of it, that's the moving center operating on autopilot while the other two are somewhere else entirely. Gurdjieff called this the wrong work of centers. Each center doing something it wasn't designed for, or doing its own work mechanically, without any real presence behind it. This is where the teaching becomes useful, not as philosophy, but as a tool you can actually use. Once you know the three centers exist, you can start to notice which one is running the show in any given moment. The irritation that arrived before the thought, that's the emotional center, already ahead of the intellect. The decision you keep making despite better logic. What center is driving it? What does the body want that the mind won't admit? The meal you ate without tasting it. Where were you? Which center was active and which ones were absent? These aren't questions with easy answers. They're not supposed to be. Gurdjieff wasn't interested in giving people explanations to carry around. He was interested in giving people something to look at. The three centers are a lens, a way of slicing the moment differently than you're used to. What would it mean for the three centers to work together? Gurdjieff described this as one of the aims of the work, a kind of inner coordination that most people never experience and wouldn't recognize if they did. He was careful not to make it sound easy or fast. He didn't promise that knowing about the centers would change anything. What he did say is this: you can't work on something you haven't seen. Most of us move through life in a state of inherited conflict, intellectual, emotional, and physical impulses pulling in different directions, and no one at the center noticing. The three centers become visible the moment you start looking for them, and once you've seen them, you can't entirely unsee them. That might be enough for now. Take this lens out with you, not as a problem to solve, as something to notice. Which center just spoke? Which one is running right now? See what you find.